One of the hardest challenges for new players is getting into character and diving into a game. We don't just mean doing the voice either. We mean really trying to think about what your character would do and what they would say. It can be tough to get out of messing with the mechanics and making lots of above-the-table talk. But there are two major factors that make up this problem, and we think we have a solution that will help with both. So strap in and sit back while we take a look at two kinds of players that are both struggling to get their heads in the game. The first player has the classic problem. They don't know what to say until the moment's already come and gone. Deep in the crypts of Ravenloft, the party approaches an obsidian coffin. As they get a bit too close, the lid tears off and Strahd von Zarovich emerges ready for blood. Lokir, the paladin of Bahamut, steps forward and says, We're gonna take you right down, Strahd. That's it? Our great closing speech is a half-thought-out sentence? In the awkward pause that follows, in comes our second player with a different problem. Kimmy Jarder, the peanut druid, steps forward and declares, What he said, Fartmaster General. A small laugh ripples through the players, and in that moment, it breaks the tension. Soon enough, though, Jarder feels like he should have said something better, and Lokir is gonna play this back in their head for like 2 years. The first player's struggling to know what to say. They have the idea down, your time has come, evildoer, but with infinite options, they keep landing nowhere. The second player's in the same boat, but rather than imploding, they're exploding, peppering in references to fantasy Applebee's and jumping from joke build to joke build like nobody's business. So, how do we help these polar opposite players? How can we help shepherd both of the floundering players to get their heads back in that game? The answer is genre. We all know the big basic genres: action, adventure, fantasy, post-apocalyptic, and so on and so forth. But that breaks down into more helpful little subgenres. Grimdark fantasy like The Black Company or Berserk, low fantasy like the first few books of Game of Thrones, and even epic fantasy like Lord of the Rings or the Stormlight Archives. But how can these genres help a nervous player? Well, when you don't know what to say, or you can only think of jokes and easy outs, being a little genre savvy can go a long way. So first things first, what kind of story are you telling? If you know the answer to that, you're already halfway there. Is this a swashbuckling fantasy of magical treasure and dastardly foes like Pirates of the Caribbean? Or perhaps it's more of a deadly adventure through a decaying world like Dark Souls? Or is it a full-blown comedy of ridiculous spells and even more ridiculous plot points like a Terry Pratchett novel? Once you place the adventure, improvisation becomes a breeze, as you pull from some of the classic hallmarks of the game you're already enjoying. Let's say that Curse of Strahd game from earlier was in a grimdark fantasy genre, where resources are scarce and players have been dropping left and right. If that's the case, then when Lokir confronted Strahd, their response might be a simple narrowing of the eyes and a call of, get around him, now. A grimdark hero is more interested in surviving than in giving a speech. Swap that for a high fantasy quest of epic heroes, and Lokir might have a whole little speech written out, wrapped up with an emboldened, For Barovia. This works even better if you can nail down a genre before the game kicks off. A player wanted to try out the 2024 Warlock will make very different PCs for a sword and sorcery game inspired by Conan the Barbarian versus a fantasy epic inspired by the Wheel of Time. The first is more likely to be an amoral cultist to some dark god, helping the party in exchange for dark secrets that might one day put the party at odds. The latter would be better off being a misguided hero with a heart of gold who will find some way out of their contract by the time the game is over. Both are warlocks, but they belong in different worlds and different stories. If you like the video so far, please consider subscribing. We publish new videos every week and live stream every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So make sure you don't miss out on any of the content by hitting that button now. Knowing the genre of your game lets you pull from movies and books in that same world. So not everything feels so overwhelming to drum up in the moment. Now, you do have to be pretty careful. Don't lean in so hard that you just become a bunch of tropes duct taped together. Inevitably, there will be a high fantasy lawful good paladin with tears in his eyes every time he has to slay a villain. But you don't have to play something that one note just to keep things easy. So next time you're feeling backed into a corner in a scene, or the team is hatching plans and nothing but silly tricks and half jokes are coming to mind, ask yourself, what kind of game am I in? What's the genre? How do the people in that typical genre sound? What kind of genres do you prefer to play in Dungeons & Dragons? Drop some movies or books that you think are lightning in a bottle for your genre of choice. And remember, stay foolish.